Okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this quick as can be. I've got something in, 43 minutes. So, in fact, I will probably actually end up having to come back for the rest of it later. But, let's get as far as we can now. Okay, Intrigue, I haven't seen any of these yet. I have some things that I wanted to discuss. That is, choice cards. All the choices need to be relevant. Cards that care about multi-typedness. They need to be good to synergize with multi-type, but also not broken when there's multi-type around. Vanilla-ish cards still need to be interesting. There's something else. I'll probably catch it in the second part. Anyway, Logothete. Costs 4, 2 actions, reveal a card, plus a card, and plus a money for every victory card revealed, and then something to make it not stack. That's sort of interesting. So early on it's really good, like a Bazaar, or better even. But then it doesn't stack, but you bottom deck, which means I guess you see those victory cards again. That is a really interesting drawback. This is definitely one that I want to look at, or keep in mind. Okay, Cold Iron. Holy crap, that's a lot of types. Why is it okay, that actually works. It's a treasure, and then it also is a victory and an attack and a reaction. It's probably too much going on. Why is there not 3 lines? Anyway, worth 1. When you play it, each other player draws a card and puts it from his top of his deck. Okay, so he draws, and then like a worse ghost ship, which is very mild attack. When another player plays an attack card, you may discard this. You get to moat the attack, 1 attack, and get a silver in hand. I just think it's too much going on to try to be a half harem. I don't know. That was the other thing is, don't make, that was it. It was the victory cards, the split victory cards, you probably, because you don't want to have super complicated treasure play and super complicated or treasure or action and super complicated victory, because it's just going to be too much to think about with 1 card. But I mean, maybe you can make it work if you have 1 simple and 1 complex. But I think you generally want, for the most part, especially also for space on the card, which is one of my points I was going to make, you want it to be pretty simple on both halves. But it's going to be difficult because a lot of those split card simple spaces have already been taken by existing cards, so it's really hard to do a duel. There's some room left for it, but not tons. You also don't want it to just feel tacked on. Oh, it's a victory just 'cause. Although that's not the biggest problem for me. Like Peddler that was worth a VP for 5 would be a fine card in my book. Anyway, okay, Sphinx A. Cantrip. Oh, I do have a card in this contest. It's not Sphinx A. I won't tell you if it's any one of the other ones. Plus a card, plus an action. If it's the first time you played a Sphinx, guesses how many action cards you'll play. Okay, that's terrible. That's really terrible. I hate that mechanic. Okay, Sphinx B. Choose 1, 3 cards, and discard a card that is not a victory card. That is... Or 3 and cards cost 1 more, or trash 3 from your hand and gain a card costing 0. So that's probably too good. The first option is just so much better than... It's so close to Smithy, and then it's cheaper. And, like, if you have a hand of... Well, okay, yeah. Well, I guess it's not. It's like a slightly worse Courtyard. Slightly worse Terminal Silver. Or a... Trash 3 cards from your hand, gain a card. It's somewhat worse of a Courtyard. Gain a card costing 0. That might actually be okay, but it's not interesting enough for me, I don't think. Okay, Paladin. Action, attack, victory. It's a non-terminal attack. That's fine. It's just not that interesting. Worth 1 for every 4. So if you get 8 of these, they're each worth 2. That's going to swing a bit on how good the other attacks are. I'm not very enthused on this. Okay, Landlord, it's a moat. You may discard a victory card. If you do, it turns into a lab. That's quite reasonable. Worth 1 VP per empty supply pile. So that'll always be 1, and often 2 to 3. Yeah, that's quite a reasonable card. This is the kind of way you do a split card, I think. Or a double dual type. Okay, Dance. Action, attack, reaction. Each player card on top decks, or each player puts his deck into his discard. That's quite weak. When another player shuffles, you can reveal and discard this for 2. This is just way too weak and boring. Neither of these are interesting mechanics. And when they shuffle, it's like really weird. Reaction. Okay. This one's a terminal silver. You have to discard. There's 4 more. Discards a card that shares a type with and costs more. That is like too many qualifiers. That's quite good, because this will often be terminal copper that makes them discard a silver. Which is similar to Cup Purse. Maybe it works, but it needs to cost at least 4. Plus you have some other options. You have to discard. Maybe it works. I'm not too enthused by it. Okay, Concerto. Is that how you spell Concerto? I guess that is. Non-terminal. Look through your discard. You may reveal a card from it and put it on the bottom of your deck. And you probably make this a Necropolis, but you might make it a Copper, or well, you probably won't make it a Cantrip. With dual types, it's pretty good, but not great. Otherwise, it's pretty weak, because sticking something on bottom of your deck doesn't help that much, as it doesn't really make it miss a shuffle, much less. It's an interesting thought, though. I think it's definitely worth more thought. I just think it's quite weak right now. Could probably cost 2. Okay, Architect. It's an action silver that while it's in play, when an action card, including this, so it can be a lab or a silver. Now that's an interesting ability. But it's, well, I would say it's probably too good, but that can't be right. It's like a lab with a somewhat of a plus for 6. It's a reasonable and good card. Okay, this is definitely going on the good list. So far, it's a better, maybe the best week, average-wise so far. Okay. Acropolis costs 5. When you play it, plus 1 card per unused action you have, then gain a 2 cost. So it's an Acropolis, unless you already have actions. Acropolis, Necropolis. In which case it can be just super monstrous. I think that card's a bit too swingy for my taste. It might be fine, it's just not really my taste. But there's probably some way it's broken too. I don't know. Prefecture. Reveal cards from your deck until you reveal a victory card, should say, from the top, but whatever. If you do, put it on and 1 other revealed card into your hand. Discard the rest. Oh, that's terminal, though. So it draws you probably a pretty good card. It's self-anti-synergizing. I think it's pretty weak in most cases. Maybe you could even cost it at 4. Definitely an interesting idea. Okay, Nabob. 2 cards, trash a card from your hand. That's quite strong. And you can either remodel it or make it an attack. Wow, that's quite good. So like it's a moat that you can either trash like something really cheap and make everyone else gain bad cards, or trash something reasonably expensive and remodel it. That's quite a good card, but also interesting. Another good card. Good the first time I said it, I meant strong. Anyway, the second time I meant it, I meant like fun. Okay, Courtier, you may gain a duchy if you didn't gain a silver. Each other player may gain an estate if they didn't gain a copper. So they're almost always going to be gaining coppers. You're probably gaining silvers. That's quite strong, especially since you have some extra options. I guess they can gain estates, so that gives them some extra options too. But I think this is pretty good. Silver's a lot better than copper, and duchy's a lot better than estate. Maybe not broken. Not my favorite cup of tea. Surprisingly, because it seems to play for slogs, and I love slogs, but anyway. Monastery, gain a card costing up to 6. For each 1/4 it costs, each other player may either trash a card from his hand, gain 2, or redraw a hand. Wow, that's quite a benefit, but gaining a card costing up to 6 is good. It's not that much of a benefit later in the game, though. I guess it gains them some money. Yeah, probably be good with a lot of discard attacks. Like you discard attack them, then play this, then play discard attack. But you know what? By the time you're doing all of that, you've earned it. It's interesting. On a normal week, it'd probably be good enough for me to say it deserves extra consideration. But cards are really good this week, so it might miss the cut for me. Okay, Lawyer. 2 money, reveal the top card of your deck. If you reveal a victory, discard it, and gain an action costing up to 5. Holy crap. Otherwise, put it back and gain a... Wow. That is really swingy. That is really, really swingy, because it's doubly good if you have an action, doubly bad if you don't. No, wait. It's doubly good if you have an action, and just okay if you don't. I think it's a bit too strong, and swingy and not that interesting. Also I'm looking for combos with scout cards. This one does not. Okay, action victory. Reveal your hand. If you revealed a treasure card, a victory card, and an action, each separate cards, what? No. No, that doesn't make sense. Okay, then 3, otherwise 1. Yeah, I just don't like it. Okay, Bailey. Do this 3 times. Choose either an action or discard a victory card, and 2 if you did. And it's worth a VP, so it self-synergizes. Lots of people are doing that. Holy crap! That card, Overseer, has a lot of stuff. Okay, anyway. Back to Bailey. So you can either make it triple actions with... That combos really well with like... It's sort of like Crossroads. Or it can be 2 actions, discard, and gain 2 if you have a victory card. That's quite nice, I think, actually. Good for Bailey. I'd really love to make a that plus Crossroads deck. It combos well with itself, of course. Yeah, interesting. Okay, Wall. Action, reaction. Choose 2. Look at the top card of your deck and discard it or put it back. Gain a card costing up to 3. Trash a card from your hand. So you get a filter. The top is pretty weak. Gaining a card costing up to 3 is pretty good. I mean, it's okay, but it's not that great, like compared to Workshop, but you're getting to do something else. Trashing a card from your hand is real nice. And then if you don't want to do that, you can always filter the top. So this falls into the choice pitfall. Like there's the choice cards, you want it to be interesting. A lot of times you take all the different choices. Here, it's very rarely going to be, well, do I want to look at the top of my deck or trash a card? And you're like almost always going to gain the 3 cost. I guess maybe not, but almost always so. Okay, Overseer costs 4. Put a marker on an empty district of the Overseer map. If you put it on the... If 4 districts have a marker, you get to reveal them all. So you either get Woodcutter, or Workshop, or Peddler. Well, you're just going to take Peddler and Smithy. These 2 options need to be worse. They should all be 3 cost, 2 to 3 cost cards, I think, that you're trying to replicate. And And then there's just too weird of a... Like, the fourth time you play it, it's quite bad. It's just sort of random if you're playing it and someone else is, which I think you probably would be. Having this many choices is quite good. I think they all need to be weaker, or have it cost 5 and make it... You gotta choose some different 4-cost actions. I'm not sure if I love the mat thing either. So it's probably a pass for me, although it's reasonably interesting. Okay, Shrine, Action Victory, non-terminal. You either get to trash a card or draw a card, and it's worth 2. Yeah, just boring. Committee. Terminal Silver, the player to your left names a card. You get to reveal the top 4 and choose one that is not the named card. Trash it or gain a copy. Put the untrashed cards back in any order. So, so the problem with this is they have to like name province later on. And early on you're going to be able to trash copper or estate pretty much no matter what. Or if you hit a good card, yeah, it just does too many things. It's sort of like a jester for yourself. But it needs to not be able to gain provinces. It's too strong. Like, it needs to be, that's not a victory card or something like that. Taylor Compton. I don't understand this. Okay, anyway. It's a cantrip. Discard any number of victory cards. +1 per discarded. Too boring. Although it's often a peddler for 5, like, just make it +1 to start with and not try to do the fancy thing. I think it would be more interesting, actually. Alright, anyway, Usurer costs 5. I mean, this card's fine. Costs 5, discard any number. You either get money per discarded, or each other player discards until he has the same number of... Wow, that's too strong of an attack. You just shut someone out forever. Like, you get into this pin where you're gonna lose, but so you just trash down to 4 or fewer cards in hand. You play this, discarding your whole hand, and they have to do that. And as long as there aren't any piles out, they just can't do anything. They can't win. And if they're not up by enough, they can't start buying enough curses. So yeah, that's too penny for not that great of a card. Like, a secret chamber is terrible. Really it is. And it's only good when you do degenerate things, so terror broken. Dungeon, non-terminal, trash up to 3 from your hand, so that's sort of like count. But a little bit better than the trashing option on count, but with much less versatility. And then it's worth a VP. Oh, it's also non-terminal, so that's good. Worth a VP per... Wow. You could make it worth like 5. I think that's a little bit too good, although it's sort of interesting. I should say cost in coins instead of the in coins here, but whatever. Majordomo. Whatever. Non-terminal. Plus an action. And discard one. So if you discard an action, it's like a worse lab. That's nice. If you discard a treasure, it gets you back to parity with some filtering, which is not very good. If you discard a victory, it's like a worse cantrip. That card's quite weak. It could probably even cost 2, but definitely 3, I think. Sort of interesting. I don't really know that I like the 1, 2, 3 cards, but okay, it's okay. Wedding! Plus an action. You may trash up to 2. If you trashed exactly 1, they have to discard down to 3. If you trashed exactly 2, they all have to gain a curse. Why is this called Wedding? Anyway, it's too strong. Liege. It's too strong and boring. Liege costs 5. It's a moat that each other player has to discard a victory card, and you get to keep playing it as long as they have victory cards. So it makes them want to not have victory cards, which they already want to not do. This is way too good for engines, I think. Okay, Trader. Like, it just... they never buy victory cards ever, and that sucks. Or they do, and so you get a lot of these, and it's amazingly good. Yeah, I don't really like that. Okay, trader costs 4. It's a terminal copper. Well, we'll see if it's terminal, but it's a copper. Choose one. Name a card costing up to 3, and each of the player discards it. Okay, that's fine. So it's copper that cut versus them, which is, or maybe hits their silver. Or choose an attack card from your hand and play it. Wow. Okay, that's too good if you have an attack card and reasonable otherwise. So just one option's so much better than the other. I don't like that. Homestead. +2 actions. Reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal a victory card. Put it in your hand. Discard the rest. So that's pretty good, but not great with the, I mean, it's quite good with like harem or nobles, but not like that broken. And then it just cantrips and not a good, like it's a worse village that's worth a VP. That's a fine card. Observatory. I like some of these names I've definitely seen in these contests before. Okay, Observatory. Costs 3 plus an action. Reveal the top 3. If you revealed a victory card, put all of them into your hand. Otherwise, discard them. 2 swingy. Tiller. Trash a card from your hand. Also, isn't this like... I guess it's not strictly better than Scout because it's only 3, but holy crap. Okay, strictly better than Scout. I don't like strictly better, but honestly, strictly better than Scout wouldn't be that terrible. Tiller, especially if there's like some weird edge case where it's not, other than, you know, oh, it's differently named, or if they possess me. Okay, Tiller. Costs 4, trash a card from your hand. Player on the left chooses a card, costing at least 2 more and gaining. Ah, so it's like a variation on Remodel, but they get to choose for you, but it's at least 2 more? That's actually just worse than Remodel. If it were at least 3 more, it might be interesting, although it might be too strong. Or if... I don't know, it's maybe it should just cost 3 and be as is. That might be good, or maybe even 2. I don't know. Okay, Architect. Costs 5, trash a card from your hand. This is an interesting idea, I just think it's too weak here. Trash a card from your hand. There's a lot of trashing stuff I guess people are carrying over from Dark Ages. Choose one. Gain a card costing up to 2 more than the trash card. So you gotta either remodel it, which you can top deck, or slightly better than salvager it. That's fine but boring. Plus a card, plus a groundskeeper, plus a card, plus a money. Discard 1. Set aside up to 3 cards from your discard pile, discarding them after your next. So, it's like a pseudo trasher. That's interesting. Shuffle your discard pile and put it at the bottom of your deck is a little bit weird to do, but I quite like the idea, especially the first part. Yeah. Well, not this bit. I don't know about this bit, but this part, yeah, I get behind. I think it's probably a bit weak at 5, though. Anyway, I definitely like the idea. Okay, Heir. After the game, choose one. Trash an estate, and this is worth 1 per estate from your deck. Or trash 2 curses, and it's worth 2 VP. Or trash 3 coppers, and it's worth 3 if you have no treasures in your deck. So you'd have to have exactly 3 coppers to make it worth 3. That's probably a bit hard to do, and really not worth it. Because seriously, why? Or you trash... It's also weird to have choices at this point, so I'm probably going to pass on this, because we've had some pretty good cards already. Trashing 2 curses, making this worth 2 is... So if there's curses, this is effectively 4, but it's not something that makes you really want to gain curses. Definitely to also get this. No. Also, do you have to do this for every one of these? And then trashing an estate For what if you can't do any of them? What if you can only do one? I guess you have to do that. Trash an estate, and this is worth 1 VP. So if you had 8 estates, this could be worth 7 minus 1 is 6. Yeah, this card just seems too weak and weird, and yeah, I don't know. Mob, action attack. The player to your left reveals his hand. Choose one of them costing up to 6. And you either get to junk them or gain a really nice card. But I don't like that it's so dependent on the player to your left. I'd almost make it just one from your hand. I don't know. It's okay, but too many other good cards. Okay, Nouveau Riche, which is probably totally butchered pronunciation. You may discard an estate. If you do, +3 cards. Wow. And these are all progressive. So, right, in order. Yeah, got that. So if you discard an estate, then that's like a plus lab, like a stables, but you got to discard an estate for it. So that's quite good. Like really, really, really good. Oh, but it's not. It's terminal. So it's like a plus smithy. Oh no, it's like a plus moat. Okay, that's fine. You may discard a duchy to give you 2. You can discard a... Yeah, this is interesting. If it's not too strong, I quite like it. It encourages you to gain cheap victory cards, which is something I always like reversing the order. I thought Rebuild was going to do that, but it doesn't. Rebuild is just like, good, you just, get Rebuilds. Play them all. Okay, get some duchies. This, makes you actually reverse it, so that's quite nice. I can also whiff, but that's okay. This is one of my favorites, I think. Okay, Hidden Passage. Costs 3. You can trash a card from your hand. Each other player may reveal the top 2 to trash one and discard the other. Which is, why would you ever do that unless it was really early? Also, this card is terrible because it's strictly worse than just you may trash a card from your hand, which is basically strictly worse than Trade Route unless you're somehow forced to play it off a golem or something. Card's awful. Okay, Legate. Like Legate Parn, the Cardassian rank from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Were there any of those in some of the other Star Treks? I don't know. They definitely had Legates in Deep Space Nine. I think they were the equivalents of admirals. I'm pretty sure they were the equivalents of admirals. Love the name. Anyway, it's a copper. It's an action copper that each player reveals the top 3, puts 1 into his hand, puts the rest back on top in an order he chooses. So it's a peddler that filters for you and has a slight drawback. That is interesting. I think it's probably not super strong because you're labbing them. Holy crap. Which, even though it's their worst one, is probably better than the benefit you get, or roughly equivalent to it, and then opportunity cost is too high. Unless you have discard attacks, in which case, hello, this is good. Okay, Secret Plot. But I think Legate is interesting, but just too weak. You could probably cost it at 2. Okay, Secret Plot, it's a treasure victory. Ooh, I really want, a half harem. Some kind of treasure victory, because there's only one of those, and I wish there were more. Worth 1. When you play this, each player may set aside a card face down on a Secret Plot mat. You may reveal them in turn. Worth 1 for each other... So, the pseudo-trashing is good. Each differently named card on your mat that no one else has a copy of. That's too confusing, though. And the pseudo-trashing is just really nice. But I guess each player gets to do that, so that's not so nice at all. This card is actually probably quite weak. It suffers from the Bishop syndrome, where they get the same benefit as you, and you had to play the opportunity cost of getting it. For the trashing, anyway. Castellan. Do the following 3 things in any order. You get the version in parentheses each player. So it's like a governor. Okay. Each player draws to 5 or 6, so it could just moat you. Oh, it does just moat you. then, oh, there's also the discard. And then trashes up to... So you probably trash, then discard, then draw. I don't really like it. Yeah. I don't know. It's just not that... Not really yearning for it. I don't know. Inquisitor. Terminal silver. Each other player may discard any number of cards. Choose one. They gain a wow. Curse for each card over 3. They trash a card from his hand and draw until they have 3. You gotta choose that? Way too good. Way too good. Because it's effectively mountebank or better. Because if they discard down, yeah, you make them trash. That's just so strong. That's like stupid strong. Like, if that costs 6, it would still be the strongest card in the game strong. If it costs 7, it would still be like disgustingly... Well, I mean, it might be too expensive there, but it'd be disgusting anyway. Narcissist. Reveal and discard any number of differently named cards. For each card discarded this way, if it's an action, +2 actions, treasure, +2 money, victory, +2 cards. So, Ironworks, or I guess this is more like it's more like a tribute on yourself, but you have to discard them, which is a significant drawback. Definitely worth considering. I don't know how much of a drawback that is, but I want to come back to this later, I guess. Okay, Ironworker. Ooh, we're to the end. Maybe I'll come back to Narcissist. I guess I'm going to have time. Ironworker, discard a card if it's an action +3 actions, if it's a treasure +3, if it's a victory +... Okay, so... If you're discarding a copper with this, it's like it was a terminal silver. For 2, that's fine. If you're discarding an action, it was like it was a necropolis and you turned the other thing into a necropolis. Which is fine. If it was a victory, you got a ++ moat. If it's multiple of those, wow, that's insanely good. Like, if you discard a harem, you're down 2 cards, so you end up +1 card and +1 money. I guess that's not that strong. Yeah, I quite like Ironworker as well. Plus a card, plus a money, and some filtering. I mean, but that's not that great. Okay, Warden costs 6. Non-terminal, choose 2 in any order. Draw until you have 6 in hand. Play an action from your hand. Trash a card from your hand. And gain a card costing up to 2 more. Putting it on top of your deck, the choices must be different. So, I guess you can remodel sometimes. I don't think you're going to want to do that often. But you're probably going to draw almost always afterwards. And that'll draw, let's see, if you've played an action that didn't, unless it's a draw action, I guess, then you might draw first or remodel first. If you play a non-draw action first, and this is the first action in your hand, it gets you down to 3, so it's like a double lab, but that's okay for 6. Like, play an action card from your hand makes this also sort of like a village. I think this card's quite good, not quite interesting enough for me. I mean, oh, it does a lot of stuff that looks interesting, but I don't think it actually... I mean, it's probably reasonably average interesting, but I'm looking for a super interesting card, I guess. I don't know. Cannoneer! Cannoneer, Cannoneer. +2 cards, plus some money. Each other player with at least 5 in hand reveals one of them. He either discards it and gains a copy of it, or he trashes it, your choice. Your choice. So that's a reasonably strong attack. And 2 cards and a money is sort of a weird combination, but reasonably good. Yeah. I wonder if it might be too strong, but really, I mean, is it going to be stronger than Cultist or Mountebank? Probably not, so it's probably okay. Not my favorite. Okay, Visiting Dignitary. Non-terminal, you have to trash it. Okay, so like Feast. Gain another one of them, and a victory card costing up to 6. So it's a rush card, because you deplete this pile and a victory card pile very quickly. So like Duchy or something. And then it's probably quite bad, but reasonable, maybe. Like, it's just sort of a bad gainer with Great Hall. It can work in slogs. It works pretty nicely with Harem and Nobles. Reasonably with Island. Yeah, I mean, it's probably fine. Not good at all, but fine. And not so weak that you'd never play it. So it's like one of those weak cards that makes the game a little more interesting. So I quite like that as well. Okay, let's go back to Narcissist for a second, since I actually have the time. You reveal. Okay, so so you turn actions into Necropolis. That's pretty bad, especially if you're spending a terminal to do it, or an action to do it. A card as well. A treasure. It's 2, but so you'd only really do it with copper. Silver would be even trade-off. Copper you would get a money with. Victory cards, so you get to draw 2. So that's pretty good if you can get multiple different victory cards in your deck. Might be more of a cornucopia card, but I guess it's playing off of tribute. Like self-tribute. Narcissist. I get it. Hey, that's punny. And okay, I guess early on, right? If you get it with all coppers, then it only is a terminal copper. But it gets you to 5 again. So that's not that bad. If you get it with a copper and an estate, it's sort of weak card. Unless maybe if you're drawing a significant portion of your deck can start engineering stuff out pretty solidly by itself. That's still like, because you have to have a bunch of support cards for a 5. Could probably be cheaper. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, but reasonably interesting. Okay, that's it for this week. I was surprised at how fast I was able to get through it when I focused, and I've got 5 minutes to spare. Thanks for watching, and be sure to comment in the thread or on the video. Both, really.